Chalmers. I'm sure you know who that is if you're from Coloma. My hotels were the center of life in this town. And my winery, one of the finest and largest in the entire state of California. The ruins of it are still up there on the hill behind my vineyard house. I was born in Scotland. And my papa was a friend of Robert Burns and loved his poems, and when Burns died just before I was born, I was named after him, Robert. When I was a lad, everything went wrong in that land. Blights and storms destroyed the crops. Economic chaos and inflation destroyed people's livelihoods and families. And then the cholera came and took everyone's life. So many died that all over Britain, people emigrated to America. My papa was one of them. We came across the sea in 1833. We came with our next door neighbors, the Ferriers family. And we went to live in Canada. My papa was a success as a farmer there in Canada. Well, he was even a member of the Parliament. And at 19, I married Kate Ferrier, who had, as I said, her family had emigrated with ours. So she was from the same little Scottish town where I was from. 10 years later, in 1849, we heard of this gold in faraway California. It was all the talk. My papa didn't want to go, but I certainly did go. I found a home for my wife and children near where my parents lived so that they could watch out for each other whilst I was away. And I came across in a wagon train with John Ferrier, my wife's brother. We got here in September of 1850. Everywhere men were at work, digging everywhere. Wet dirt, dry dirt, high ground, low ground, 2 feet down, 12 feet down. Some were making $400 or $500 a week. Others were working for weeks on end and just making enough to buy food. Well, John went straight into the mines to have his luck. But I went to work in a store in Georgetown, and in 2 years I had saved $2,500. John and I then went back to Ontario, but not to stay. No, we knew now that California was the golden paradise. Such a fertile and smiling land, so full of promise. So we gathered together our possessions, and the next year we came back to California. I with my wife and children, and John with his 2 sisters, Jessie and Annie. Jessie later married Luther Davis. That was your mother, Emma. Nice to see you here today. Well, anyway, shortly after we got back, I bought the Sierra Nevada Hotel. The big hotel that stood right over there across Main Street. I can see the spot from here. I built that hotel into the largest and grandest hotel in this town. It was the center of life in this town. Everything of importance in Coloma always happened under that roof. Daytimes, Jim Marshall would sit there on the porch and tell his stories. Kate kept the hotel running, whilst I did the harder work. And I also kept 2 stables of milk cows and fine gardens to supply the tables. Well, I was also the postmaster here. I was the assessor. I kept the treasury for the Coloma Greys there. I was in the Grange, the Oddfellows, the Masons, the Territorial Pioneers. Later I was elected the county treasurer, and later still I served in the California State Assembly, where I helped James Marshall get a pension. Well, Kate died in 57. I married Delia in 59. We had 10 good years together, and then Delia died of a long illness. And that was about the same time my good friend Martin Alhoff passed on. Martin had been my friend a long time. He had come with me and John when we went back to Ontario in 1852 to get our families, and we remained close friends ever after. And when John died, I was honored to serve as his executor and appraiser. I served as guardian for his children, and a few months later, I married his widow, Louisa. Now, Martin had been a winemaker. He had been giving me a few grape slips over the years, and I had used those to start my own vineyards. But now, I purchased the winemaking equipment from his estate. I joined my vineyards to his, and I began producing wine in earnest. And I built that winery into the largest and finest winery in this part of the state. I had 100,000 vines. We made 40,000 gallons of wine a year and 12,000 more of brandy. I had a dozen full-time employees, a dozen of the finest draft horses, an enormous work shed, 3 grand vaulted cellars of quarried granite. I took my wine down to the rail yards at Single Springs and sent them all over California. I shipped my wine to Oregon, to Utah, some to the East Coast, some even to Europe. Now you may think I'm bragging, but you may ask anyone who knew me then. Everything I owned was kept in perfect order. My vineyards were beautiful and orderly. My vaults magnificent. My wines superb. I could show you a long list of first prizes I was awarded at the California State Fair for the high quality of my wines in those years. But I wasn't finished yet, or satisfied. And in '78, I built the largest and grandest hotel that's ever been seen in this part of the mines. I called it the Vineyard House. It was 3 stories tall, with a grand ballroom, a huge kitchen, a luxurious dining room, the finest rooms and the finest furnishings. It quickly became again the center of life for this town. Well, for this county and beyond. People came from far to attend the dances there. But my world caved in a year later. Everything went crazy. I heard voices. I lost my sight. I lost my reason. I could not remember who my friends were or what I was to do. I could not control myself. I spent 3 wretched weeks in an insane asylum in Stockton, until they moved me to a padded cell at my brother's store there. But they had to bring me back to Coloma because they said I made too much noise and shouting through the day and the night and driving the customers away. So they built 2 rooms at the Vineyard House with a small window in between. They hired Martin Nelson to watch me through that window while I lived in the other. Many times I wanted to end my life, but there was nothing in that room to use. Several times I chewed my mattresses to pieces during the night, but that confounded Nelson would see me before I could choke on the pieces. And do you suppose that Louisa was a compassionate wife? Ach, she was not. She would come to my door to taunt me, to provoke me, to ridicule me. She would say, "No, Robert, you can't go see that woman or this woman." I would yell at her. I would just go crazy. I would say, "I wish I could get my hands on you and tear you to pieces." But that didn't stop her. She just kept taunting me from her place of safety outside of my cell. I lived a year and a half in that awful room until the summer of '81. When finally, and much too late, I went to my rest. They made a great fuss at my funeral. They said a great many things, some good, some bad. All true, I think. I have no regrets. Surely I was a hard-headed businessman, but I was successful. I was kind to my children. I was loyal to my friends. And I played a part in building California into a great state for its future citizens. All of you. Robert Chalmers.